Welcome to the fifth episode of Witty CFB and your host, Rob Sheply here. And on today's episode, we are going to be discussing the College 25 football release that is coming down on July 19th. Now, as you know, it's been about a decade since the games came out. I'm excited. Everybody should be excited. When I first looked at the trailer, I got pretty freaking excited. I was sitting there, kind of reminiscing on all the old games like the NCAA 06, NCAA 04, NCAA 07, and obviously NCAA 14, which, I think many could argue that's probably one of the best college football games ever, that and 06 obviously. And, people are always going to criticize to some degree. I saw an immense amount of detail, particularly when I saw the fan interactions, particularly with the 12th man, and also just a lot of the attention to detail with the traditions, the bands, everything like that. And if you didn't read the article on ESPN about it, that kind of discusses the backstory of the game being released and the head producer, kind of trying to, use his influence to really get the game, finally released, produced, etc. It's definitely worth the read. Now, a couple things that kind of, stand out to me. I think the first things first is, it looks like to me that they're kind of rolling back the ESPN kind of edition of it. As you know, the past, if you remember the older games, a lot of them had the ESPN integration, particularly with the College Game Day, where Lee Corso would pick the helmet and all that. And it seems like they're kind of winding back that a little bit. My understanding, it's gonna be probably more of kind of like just a pregame show where, they might say like a sentence or two, and then the game starts. I don't think it's going to be a full blown, game day like we saw, Lee Corso picking the helmet and having Desmond Howard and all those guys there. But I am really excited about the multiple commentary teams because especially, I'm at the end of the day I'm always a fan at heart, and the one thing that I think is important on the show is being able to highlight all types of different programs, including the smaller programs, which, I'm going to be working on highlighting some of those other teams. But I think one thing that's really going to make certain matchups see a lot more marquee is when you hear Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit calling a game versus, Reese Davis or David Pellick or, etc. Now, nothing against those guys, and Jesse Palmer too. Yeah, I forgot to mention Jesse Palmer. But in any event, it's not so much that it's not anything against those guys. I think really what it comes down to more is, making those sort of marquee games feel special. Like obviously, a good example would be a Texas, Oklahoma, an LSU and Alabama, a Georgia and Florida. Like those are the types of matchups where, you would want the Chris Fowlers and the Kirk Herbstreits calling those games. And I think those kind of attention to details are going to get everybody in particular excited. I will say I'm not a big Ultimate Team guy. I'm personally more when it comes out on July 19th, I'm playing the dynasty mode. I want to build my program. I want to recruit. I want to start from the ground up. To me, that's the bread and butter. So what I'm most intrigued with is the NIL portion of it, the transfer portal, and just kind of those little details too, and particularly how much different is recruiting going to be in this game compared to previous ones. Now, what I will say is my understanding from reading EASports.com is that even though college football and Madden are going to be on kind of the same engine, I think what's going to end up being more distinguishable is some of the little details that they're adding. Particularly, I think they called it. I'll read a little bit here. They're calling it Campus IQ. Quote, imagine yourself an authentic, fast-paced college football game day with Campus IQ, a suite of features built to deliver wide-open, fast-paced, and uniquely college football gameplay. Test your strategic decision-making with an all-new composer system, player wear and tear, screen-shaking home field advantages, and dozens of diverse play styles across 134 FBS teams. See, I think when push comes to shove, I think that's like these little details that I think, it's hard to kind of imagine it until you kind of see it. But as somebody who's played, you know, all those college football games and all those Madden games for, you know, God knows how long, you know, I get excited about there having to be a little bit more sophistication in the game. Whereas, you know, many of you know people who've played the newer games, a lot of people like to just run the same play over and over, or just like to use the fast quarterback and scramble outside. Whereas when you get this play, it's going to be a lot more fluctuating. There's going to be a lot more decision making that comes down to it. You know, I know the example that they used in here is, you know, when push comes to shove, are you gonna trust your senior corner who might not be as skilled, or are you gonna trust your freshman and sophomore quarterback to cover the all-star receiver on fourth and two when it's 27-24 with a minute 30 left in the game? Those little kind of ideas, I think those ideas are going to really kind of make this stand out, particularly with, you know, I saw the wear and tear, the pre-snap recognition, you know, obviously the atmospheres too, and everything, and I think you know, also to kind of go along with that, another difference that I think people will see when it comes to general college football play is, you know, obviously it depends on, you know, what kind of offense you're running, but generally speaking, a college football game is going to be a little bit faster paced than the NFL. Not so much the clock necessarily all the time, because as you know, if it's a first down, the clock's going to stop until the ball is reset. But in any event, it's those little details that I think are ultimately going to really reflect the overall depth, attention to detail, and, you know, I think that's really what I think players really want, is be able to have to really know the game more than just watching it on Saturdays. And to me, that's really what it's going to shine through and everything. So, you know, when it comes down to it, I'm sitting here thinking I think everybody should be excited. I think it's going to be a game worth buying, and